we will begin. I will break the ice with the questions, and please, if you have any questions, raise your hands, and the microphone will come to you. Okay, so thank you very much both for the presentations, and I'm sure that we will talk a lot in our university about tonight. This evening is, I think, is dedicated to our students and to the debates inside our university, and I prepared 2 questions to start the discussion. 2 questions which are addressed to both of you of a more general manner. So I was thinking maybe also looking forward. I was thinking to addressing the question of authorship, of the architect author. Of course, we have the long tradition of the architect from Vitruvius even that condensates all the knowledge, all the types of knowledge, and he or she can address the various fields of architecture. The question goes that in today's world of collaborations, of this new ideology of that everything should be, the responsibility should be disseminated among various fields. And the question goes to you about how, so first of all, if you think that the architect author as a single entity, as a single person, is still of actuality, and if not so, how I mean, it's about all what you presented. It's about a very powerful way to summon up imagination, to bring to a place in a subjective manner references, cultural references, to interpret the world. Do you think this will remain as own to the single architect as an author, or do you believe this will change somehow?
It's okay. Yes, I believe that in the history of architecture we have had all the time both approaches, and I think there are traditions where the author is much stronger than others, and both of them are building the discipline in history. I don't think we are moving to a different moment in that sense, and I am sure there still should be both possibilities of collaborative processes where the author and the personal approach will be more hidden behind these processes, and there will be other where the strong capacity or possibilities of reading in a particular way the reality, the material, and so on, as we have just seen from Smiljan, will still exist, and I really hope that must continue to exist. I think it's something that it's always enlightening and the normal practice in architecture, and I think it's something that we as architects and even as person that inhabit the city, the landscape, we need to have that. So I don't think it's a real changement in this moment.
Yeah, I'm agree. The problem is not how you work it. The problem is to have the flexibility to work in any condition, and that is really important. Or if you don't have the flexibility to do it, you have to be really clear you could not do it, and then to know really your possibility of work, your weight of work, and to know if you could do it or if not, and that is really honest, and that doesn't mean anything. And then it's. But I'm not part of the architect who say, "Oh, we could do it together. It's gonna be better." Sometimes there's a lot of people working together and do it really bad, and then it's not about. It's about the case by case more than a dogma around it, and that's it. It's about flexibility of way to thinking. After the pandemic time, you have to be more flexibility because the architect is getting slow and the project is not coming easily, and you have to be really, really thinking about the context.
So you think there's a before and after the pandemic in terms of profession, maybe? In
terms of professional, yeah. I'm saying everything. I think is getting slow. I don't know. Everything is more slow down. I think I feel that. I don't know if it's true, but I feel that.
Yes. Another question I had in mind was about references. We're always discussing at school about references. Is a word that is so much present in, at least in the first years of study. But anyway, it's becoming, for some architects, a way of working, and we live in a very visual culture, and architectural culture is, of course, made of references. And I wanted to ask you if you have maybe a certain strategy of gathering references all together, and if there's also like a danger not to become too addicted or to fall into this trap of repeating, the surface layer of that reference.
Well, I think that the problem with the reference is you have to maintain a tension between the project and the reference. And if you are so close, you are copying. If you are so far away, nobody will understand that. And will understand you have a relation with that, and maybe your project lost it. If you said, I'm working with reference, you have to be in the middle, just with a tension in between them. And I think that tension you have to maintain on the project, and it's going to help the project on the process, or maybe sometimes on the beginning, and sometimes on the end. It's just to explain. It's just something that help you to explain the process, the building. But the reference always, it's not it's something which is around you, but you have always to keep a distance, and to how much is the distance is the misery of each project. I think so.
And
we have worked for example, in as a teaching methodology with references, and I think in that field it helps you to for complex, much more complex situations that are not necessarily easy to translate for the student. So references can bring you to more complex, more multi-layer reality, and to operate in it because of the use of the references. But in our work, what for me is important is more than the reference itself, which of course we work a lot. It's some kind of vibration that happens between the reference and the project you have. So it's something that is in between the two of the image or the work and what you are doing. So and I think that it's somehow it's a way to to go to a knowledge that is not necessarily textual, but is in another space in our practice as architects. And I think it's normally a very useful tool to think, to even if you don't present them as part of the discourse, is a tool for you to go ahead with the project, with the thinking, with and even with solutions and so on. I think it's a very powerful tool.
Yes, I was thinking that while you maintained the references somehow discrete, Smiljan, you addressed the references of to Shinohara, for example, or to Miralles. They are very present explicitly in your work. I was curious. You mentioned several times the word formal, talking about architecture, and there's a certain connotation. You say formal, then you say good formal, you know, but still formal. And I was wondering if you could maybe develop or make a.
I said that? No. Maybe sometimes I use form, and I have to say formalism. You know, it's about to have the forms on your back, and then go ahead, just trying to mean. For example, an issue in the Serpentine Gallery, we have these torus forms, you know, really clear, but when you start to do some holes on it, as I did, you know, the torus is not really stable as a structure, and it's coming to falling down in some places. And I am talking with a structural engineer in London, and in some moment they say, no, we must increase the fiberglass, not in 10, at that moment was 10 millimeters, we want to do it in 40 millimeters, mean 3 times, because it's falling down in some moments. And I said, okay, in Chile when someone is falling down, you put it on a stick and a column, and that's it, you know. The form is still there. You don't have to go ahead with that form just really clear. You just need to put 2 columns, and I put 2 columns, and then the light is coming. The skin was really fragile of this building, but and the engineer said to me, "Oh, this is really smart, you know." But it's a way to understand that the form is it is in a second layer of your thinking. You are not going on just to thinking about a torus like a forms, and I want something. And in some European buildings, I say they are really formalist in that way, you know, just to try to have a form, like a final minimalist way to understand the problem of architecture. And then this other way give you some complicity in some moments that could be good or could be really bad, depend of your work, you know.
And for me, particularly in our studio with Paula, we really try to avoid, and even in the academic field, the form issue. So we arrive to the form looking for other, like a structure, like a material system or relational system. So sometimes even the final result is not really beautiful. It's I don't know, it's something that happened after being thinking about other aspects of the project. So, and I personally, I think it's much more fruitful to go that way than to start with a formal problem as a problem of architecture.
Thank you. I would propose to take questions from the audience. And please raise your hands.
Okay. As a student, I'm curious, what was your biggest concern when you were students? If you were afraid of something, or And not only about architecture, if you want. Thank you.
We didn't study too much. I mean, we were part of some politics movements inside of the school, you know, for architecture. And for us, it was really important that more than to be in contact with people of art and that kind of things in relation out of the workshop. For me, it was really important to be really out of some workshops that was not so good, and that moment was really important to be part of these movements that we participate a lot. Some years not, and that was. And you never know, you know. It's not about to be conscious. I think in my case, I really don't mean. When I was in the second year, I want to study law, you know, just to change law for architecture. And I said not because I was really lazy at that time. I said I don't want to start again. I continue with architect. And then I'm really afraid about the young people. Sometimes I feel they are too much conscious what they are doing, you know. It's not part of, and I think it's not really productive at the end. You know? I feel that, but I'm not sure because I'm not teaching for years, and then I could not tell you really. But if you want advice, I could not tell you anything. You know, I mean it's impossible. I don't know your context. I don't know. I mean, you could not translate the different. I mean, we are talking about 40 years. You know, 40 years. No, 40, 30. Yeah, 40. No, 30 years ago. Yeah, 30 years ago. It's too much time. You know? 40 years ago. It's too much time.
Yeah, well, we were together at the school with Smiljan, and it's true. We were very dispersed. We had so many concerns, different than the architecture. Architect was one of them. It's totally different of what I see today in the school. Today you are very focused, which I think it has some good thing. I don't think it's bad. You can, if you do well, you have a lot of time to think about that, to work. For us, it was one of the several topics that we had to face. We studied during the lockout, so we could not go out by night. We had to stay in the school. We had not literature. We had to get the printing. I don't know. It arrived to our hand 5, 6, 7 years later. So we were always a little bit delay in everything, in any discussion, in any reference, in any. It was really another time, but. In this moment, I think there is some time. I think you have to be joyful with the work. I think that is the most important. To really enjoy the point and not try to be part of history of architecture from the beginning. Not to be focused on Instagram and or publishing, and no, just have fun and practice and I don't know, try different things and not be too much focused on what is happening outside. I would say that is too much energy. That I think it's a lost. It's a big loss. All the time people is dedicating to publish everything you do.
Good evening. Thank you very much for being here. The question that I address you is coming from a person that used to be a student 40 years ago. And I have a question for each of you. I will start with Cecilia Puga. In one of your very well-balanced designs, you said that the attitude was to try to touch at the least possible, to damage the least possible the earth. I referred to the national park intervention that implied a visitor center, an exhibition center, 15 buildings developed in 150 hectares. And the question is the following. There is a set of tools that you developed that occupy certain places in the site, and the question is how orientation, sun, dominant winds, and views influenced the architectural gesture that to us it seems that has a beauty that occurs from the site. So this is the question. The question relates to orientation, decisions, and positioning the buildings. And the question for Smiljan Radić, it's the following one. It seems that you are taking a partner by mastering tension. Tension between things, tension between concept, tension between ideas. And the question is the following one. If matter could speak and glass will have a voice, what will be the dialogue between the two drops?
Thank you for your question. I think it's a question that is valid for any architect, for any work we do. We are always dealing with all that aspect in any work we do. In the particular case of this park, it's a conservation area. So the most important issue was how to proceed to eventually remove everything and not let traces in the site. Of course, that is a tricky question because even if everything was prefabricated and bring to the place just to assemble, and even if we develop some kind of foundation to not make concrete on the earth, but like I don't know which is the name, but it's like yes, and for the different kind, for the different project and the different side that there were, for example, there was one part of there was turbera, which is a very fragile and protected soil. And also because the water is very superficial, so each part and each it was a very technical issue. So the way each of the different volume touch and define their place was very, very carefully defined. And considering the light, the sun, etc., of course, that was something that was taken in consideration in order to to not need a lot of energy to make the whole thing function. But normally we were in a very deep forest with not really too much light, and in some places we had open spaces where to be, and so that was a possibility, a more open possibility to choose the situation. But I am not sure if I answered the question. It was a complex conversation with biologists, with the geologists, with botanic, because we needed also each of these elements to allow continuity below each of the elements, so the small animal, insect, and so on, to not make cuts on it. So it was like a multidisciplinary discussion, and sometimes you had to sacrifice some part to reinforce others in that particular case.
I don't know if I understand well, but I of course the things doesn't speak, and that is really important to know. Everybody knows that, but it's different to put the drops like this or like this or like this. If we don't know that, we are not architects, and that's mean the things saying something about the place, about the site, about the idea of abandoned or not, you know. And then when maybe I explain really bad, but the idea is to know, you have to pay. I mean, there is an artist in Chile that Carlos Lepe that said you could have two elements in a room, you know, and you put two elements as an object, and they look like animals that they are looking in relation, all of them. And if you put on a third elements, you start to have an installation, and that kind of relation with the space and what they think, how you know you have to know where the things work together and when not, and that for me is when some things is speaking and what is not speaking, you know. It's one, and then what is in dialogue and what is just putting on it, you know, and then and that's it. That is the explanation. I could not mean that is the part of the difficult part of the teachers, you know. They have to learn that, they have to teach that, you know, and this part of the problem is the big problem, because it's something that you could feel and not to understand too much. It's about proportions, it's about architecture at the end. Formal architecture, if you will, but it's part of the problem, I think. And the drops was about how far away from each other have to be both, you know, both drops.
Good evening. So thanks for a wonderful lecture. My question comes back to the references again. So the way I see it, it's references are a way of looking outwards, let's say. And I'm wondering if there is a component in your process that's looking inwards, towards yourselves, and then towards something that belongs, let's say, only to you. And if there is something that you, or a way to discover this, and in that sense, this maybe relates to a more objective question. If you remember an important moment in your careers when, I don't know, things started to evolve, let's say, or to keep going, you know, or you discovered some mechanisms and then you keep developing it. But the question for me is interesting when, let's say, it's from nothing becomes something that you already start to work with. I hope that's clear enough.
Tudor, could you synthesize?
Yeah, I was wondering how much of your process relies on looking inwards to something that is only yours, with relation to something that I view as outwards, external references, which obviously you curate carefully and you keep looking for. So this tension again between something that's only yours and outside references.
I am not sure. I apologize if I didn't understood well the question, but in our practice, I would say that the context is always there. We work with the context. We have a client, we have demand, we have a budget, we have a site, etc. But at the end, the decisions are, I think they are founded in the discipline of architecture more than in the context, in the external context. Even if the context is something that it's part of the conversation all the time. In that sense, but it's a particular approach to architecture is less contextual than and I think I always think it's more about the narrative. I mean, I could speak about the building of Arauco just in terms of efficiency and climate crisis, and but I also can speak about that building in terms of a structural issue in history of architecture, and I also can speak about the open plan and the transparency and that doesn't mean that all of that aspects are part of the problem, but there are I think for me it's important that the disciplinary issues and are part of that the big definition at the end. I don't know if I answered something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it's really I think the things are more complex in the sense of everything is happening in the same moment. You know, it's not something that you could go ahead and then right now is this, right now is this. I mean, everything is happening in the same moment. And when I say moment, it's not a more precise moment. It's a time of work, you know, and then everything is there. You know, it's not about try to have a process. It's to work. That is not the same. To work means to work, just every day, every time, just working on it, and that's happened. But the process, as you try to understand outside, inside, for me, it's not relevant. And it's not a distinction of project. It's just to work. You know, many hours on the table, and that's it. It's not more than this, I think. And I agree with Cecilia. Everything is coming. Everything is important. Sometimes the site came to you because it's part of principal project, but you really could explain the projects in any of these things. And you, for the conference, you just choose one of them that is important for you, but could be others, could be really others. That's because the reality of the things the things and the buildings are more complex than the projects normally. When you have a good architect, if you see the magazine, the good architects are the best of them. When you could really understand when one architect is really good, when the first idea it's not better than the building, you know. When the process in between get better and better and better, and you have many really ugly ideas that is coming in on really beautiful projects because the process is really important. And then there you have a really good architect who could put together many issues around the project. But the project is not about the concept, it's not about the beginning, it's about to work, in my opinion.
Thank you for the presentation, and I think I would have a question for both of you. So if you would imagine that you would be 20-something again, what would you do in order to achieve the things that you already achieved?
Could you please repeat the question and hold the microphone in another manner? So we didn't understand the words, not the sense.
Okay. Is this the good manner?
Let's try.
Okay. So basically, if you would be 20-something again, like student or something like that, what would be the steps that you would take in order to achieve your status, like the projects and everything that you already achieved? So what would be the advice for those of us who would want to be worldwide architects and inspire the next generations? Thank you.
I am not sure if I was, but we started doing competitions. That's what we did from the very beginning. Any opportunity we had, we took it. We lost the majority of them. Some of them we win, and I think that was the starting point. For me, it's still the way to get the commission is through competitions. Is to be there, is to insist. And as Smiljan said, is to work a lot, really, really a lot, as many of you know.
Yes. So can we consider that answer satisfactory?
I am agree.
Okay, so can we pass to the next question?
Now? Yeah, great. So first of all, I want to thank you for the presentation. I mean, it was very refreshing for me and in a way very relatable. Even if you said you come from far away, I have to say that I've seen presentations from people that come from 2 countries away and feel much more alien than your presentation tonight. Now my question comes because it's a word that came across your presentations and in the discussion and even right now. And I wanted to ask each of you, what is your definition of beauty?
Of what?
Of beauty. I know.
I don't like so much the word, because beauty could mean everything, but I love the things that has its own character. That means could be ugly or beauty, but you could feel they are by themselves. And I could not define, this is not beauty, because I could say, because doesn't have, it's not large, it's not small, it's not, it's just something, and I always try to find objects that they really, when I'm saying has its own character, I'm not talking just formal things. I'm talking about the history of the object, the people who did, the people who designed, what is the relation with my work, and then there's, some of the things that I like it and that I have, they're not beauty at all for other people, but it's about our character that included your own history in relationship with the object. Of course, there are some spaces, some buildings that are beauty by themselves, but but normally I doesn't care about them because they are commonplace normally, you know. That's it.
Yeah, it's a difficult question, I think. Also because beauty moves with us in time and change, and our perspective change also, and perhaps in one moment we are able to perceive some things that make sense for us, and other we will be focused on other things. So it's a very difficult to really give a space, a precise space at that word. For me, I think we use more we say funciona. It works, you know, it works. The relation between different, the material, the space, the proportion, the light, the way you use it, it works. And that for me is a much more precise way to evaluate than beauty itself.
So maybe we can take one last question, or if you wish we can go on if there are questions. Please. Apasă mai lung.
Okay, yeah. I've noticed a lot of your projects are in open spaces, maybe. I'm very preoccupied, even if I'm an interior architect and not an urbanist, for example. But I'm very preoccupied about very dense urban tissue environment, built environment. How can you relate to, I don't know, I mean, when would you demolish and when would you keep a basic infrastructure that Smiljan at the moment talked about this? And I mean, how much can you save, even if we talk about pretty ugliness in dense urban areas? What set of rules would you had in mind when you can demolish and when you can save, and in the same time keep in mind that building a reused building is more okay for the environment than a new one?
Talking about flexibility, I think there is not a dogma about that. It's case by case, you know. You have to measure in case by case. Maybe you are wrong or you're right, but I really don't have any dogma about that. In some cases I destroy everything, some others I keep everything, you know, without problems. Depending on what you want to, what you want to do it, and what you think is the common sense is better. I mean, there is a lot of common sense, you know. It's a real. I really don't have rules. I don't want to have it, you know, because it's gonna be it's give you a name, you know. This is the architect of something, you know. This is the architect of, and I could move around some projects that. At the end, you have to be in, how Cecilia said before, you have to be enjoyed with the projects, and that's, you really could feel when you really could, the project could be really speak you about if you are happy with them or not, you know, because you enjoy them. And then to have rules about how to answer to some questions that the site or the engineer or whatever give you, it's a little bit stupid in the sense that close your possibilities. And I really don't want to do it, you know. I just always said I prefer to jump to one things, others, you know. I prefer that. Yeah.
Perhaps your question is related to the big discussion today about stop demolition, about waste of energy and so on. I think and that's why I put this image in the presentation. We in the South America, we are in a very, very different scenario in that we don't demolish. We need in Chile at least 500,000 inhabitants. We have to still build more. We need more infrastructure. We need more housing. We need a lot of things that maybe you already have, and so demolition is not really an issue for us. And in that discussion, it's very important to really situate the problem not in a generic issue. For example, for us, perhaps it's much more important for Chile to keep the ecosystem, the natural ecosystem, to be part of this discussion of the warming, than to stop demolish, or than to reduce the CO2, or than to, because we are not really making moving neither 1 degree in that discussion. We really are not relevant in that kind of issue. But we have an amount, a big amount in South America, and a big amount of forest, a big amount of glacier, a big amount of, and so maybe our role is more to keep that carefully, than to just use wood or just use, I don't know. So I think the discussion has to be much more complex and less dogmatic and how do you call when slogan, which I think is a little bit what happened today in the academic field, for example. It's really different moment in Latin America than in Europe, for example. And this planet, and with this CO2 production, is a NASA representation on how things are. So the discussion has to be more subtle in that sense, I think.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Cecilia, and thank you, Smiljan, for being here. And again, thank you for taking such a long trip to come here. I think it has been an amazing evening, and very meaningful projects and ideas you have shown us. So thank you, and I would like to thank everybody for being here tonight. And let's go downstairs for a glass of wine and a glass of beer. Thank you.